The Square Ball Podcast.
Well, hi to you. Welcome to the show. The West Stand is our new show for this season. It's out on a Monday and a Friday. You can find it on YouTube and in your podcast app as well. We welcome guests from across the wide world of Leeds United. I'm Dan Moylan. With me is Michael Normanton.
You all right?
I am all right. And nearly Black Friday. Have you been buying some fun stuff?
Not too much yet. Some coats. I mean, it's quite boring.
Bit of sawdust for the guinea pigs.
Yeah. There's the guinea pig issues at the minute, but I'll not get into that too much.
It feels like we're distracted away from this. The purpose of this, as I'm sure you've guessed, is we want to tell you about the NordVPN exclusive Black Friday deal we've got. Why might you want to use NordVPN? I mean, there's this cybersecurity angle, privacy on public networks, Wi-Fi, or if you wanted to, I don't know.
But if you like to watch a club's in-house streaming service.
Football-wise,
that's something you
for
could
example,
do.
yeah.
I don't know if you know of any that exist or any people who are on them.
No, can't think off the top of my head, but you might need to be in a different country in order to do that.
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah, on the fastest VPN in the world. NordVPN exclusive deal for Black Friday. You can find it at nordvpn.com/TSB. That link will give you an additional 4 months on top of your discounted 2-year plan. Risk-free as well, because Nord offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. nordvpn.com/TSB. And you can also find the link in the episode description box. And without further ado, then let's welcome our guest for today. Welcome back to the show, Leeds United's LUTV commentator, Bryn Law. Hiya, Bryn. You all right?
Hello. Quite tired.
Yeah.
Hello.
In your Welsh T-shirt,
Yes.
I should say.
Yes, I thought it was appropriate after the weekend.
Yeah.
What I've had.
A wet weekend in Wales.
That's top and the bottom of it. Yep, that it was.
So Wrexham, you won the temporary cop, is that right? At Wrexham?
Well,
I saw you tweet to that effect.
I was going to be, and then the Wrexham family came through for me.
Oh, you're gone.
Someone provided me with a ticket that in a stand does have a roof. So I have to admit that I quite fancied the kudos of having sat in the wet open-ended stand for the duration. But I had a long drive to Swansea after the game ahead of me, and the thought of doing it in very wet trousers was not particularly alluring. So I'm afraid I have to confess I took the offer of a seat in the dry.
I did see your social posts on Saturday morning. It seemed like you woke up somewhere in a valley.
I woke up in the beautiful Vale of Llangollen, so that's where my mum lives. So I made the decision to go over on Friday. It's a proper epic weekend, this one, by the way. I got our T-shirts done for this one. So travelled over on Friday afternoon. Saw some crazy weather briefly on the way, sort of around about Stockport. My life. And then spent the evening in North Wales, in Llangollen, which is a lovely, lovely town. If you haven't been, visit. It's beautiful. And then that was my base for part one of the wet weekend in Wales.
And then, so Wrexham game, Exeter 3-0 at the weekend in the dry.
Yes, in the dry.
Thankfully. So what time did you get out of Wrexham, and then how long did that take you to get down to Swansea, just so anybody who's not familiar with the geography of Wales and the
Right.
roads?
Well, if there's a daft journey that you can undertake in the midst of a storm hitting the UK, let me tell you that Wrexham to Swansea is very, very high on the list, because between Wrexham and Swansea, so I got in the car at 5:15 roughly, and for the next 3.25 hours, I saw one stretch of dual carriageway, probably for about the distance of 5 miles out of Wrexham. And then as I headed towards Shropshire and then into mid Wales, that's it. It's single carriageway the entire 130 odd miles until just before you get to Swansea.
I'm just looking at the route now on the map. It looks horrific. I
And
can see mountains, Bryn.
Oh, there's mountains. And so you got, I mean, they're called A roads that you're driving on, but they're not.
Yeah.
Don't be fooled. They're not A roads. So it's single carriageway, and you go up and you kind of, I must have done about 12 dogleg bends, and you're constantly seeing those black and white, the pointy things, whatever they call those, that warn you that there's a sharp bend coming. It's just, there's hundreds of those en route. It is the maddest drive conceivable.
Have you summited Penny Fan here, basically?
Pen of Van. I may well have. I don't know where. And there's one other thing, by the way. There's absolutely no road street lighting for almost the entire route. So most of it is done I did it mostly in complete darkness. So I can't really see. I can't see the road ahead except for what I can see on my. I've got a Tesla, so I've got the big map thing glowing there. So I've got an idea there might be a bend coming up here, but I'm only working off the sat because I can't see it. I'm driving through beautiful kind of surroundings, but I can't see any of that. But I'm going up and over mountains.
Yeah.
But you don't see any. You see nothing. So it was like I just drove for 3.25 hours with the road, the illuminated bit of road ahead of me.
Right.
Hit 2 quite significant floods, neither of which I saw before I found myself in them.
Right.
One of which, a car going in the other direction, full on spray up, complete whiteout, couldn't see anything through the windscreen for a second or two. So it was, it was interesting.
Right.
And then finally rolled down into so you finally hit the M4 with about 10 miles to go to Swansea, and so you drop down, literally drop down, basically back into what you might describe as kind of civilization, and then I arrived at the Premier Inn on Wine Street. Thank you, Leeds United.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to call it Wynn Street, but
No,
you would have to correct me again because again my Welsh is terrible.
Well, it isn't a Welsh. It's not a Welsh name. It's just called Wine Street. But everybody who knows South Wales, West Wales, Swansea, Cardiff knows where the places to go at night are. And in Swansea, the place to go on a Saturday night is Wine Street. So I was
paint a picture for me then. What is Wine Street?
Well, Wine Street is a longish, narrowish street, and either side of it is bar, couple of restaurants, pub, bar, all the way up.
There's a Welsh joke about all the bars here, by the way.
Yeah, don't go there.
No, I was like chomping at the bit there.
Don't go there. So you get, it's a bit like being on holiday in on a Greek island. You get people trying to lure you into their venue and all the rest of it as you're walking past. But what you do get is a lot of young people wearing not many clothes in a lot of cases, having a really great time. Whereas you've just arrived after a 3.25 hour drive from North Wales with a game to do the following day and quite hungry because you haven't had any tea. And obviously the only option really here, realistically, is to go for a kebab. So that's exactly what I did.
Arm was forced, was it?
Well, it was that or nothing kind of thing, you know.
I'm just looking on Wine Street. I see a Nando's there. I'm on Google Street View.
Yeah, well, I didn't really fancy kind of sit. I'm on my own, so the rest of the Leeds crew are already in town. They're off carousing elsewhere, including Dorigo, by the way. And so they'd already eaten by the time I arrived. So I was on my own. So as a solo traveller, I opted for the kebab back in the hotel room and match of the day option.
That feels quite sad, doesn't it, in a way?
My life, but elements of my life are quite sad. in between all the excitement and all the rest of it, there are bits that are quite Alan Partridge, to be honest with you.
Yeah, the team were quite late down there as well. I know they had trouble getting out of Leeds.
Yeah, Leeds Bradford was an issue, so they didn't. They checking bags through or something was a problem, so they didn't get down themselves because they flew to Cardiff. And then they have to drive. That's an hour from Cardiff Airport is not in Cardiff, it's in Barry, basically. So it's you've got to get from there to the motorway, which is not that straightforward. And then there's the drive to Swansea. So I think they got into the team hotel at 9-ish, and they were meant to be there early evening.
Wow.
I mean, having said all of that, I saw some of the images. I'm glad I went down. I'm really glad I went down on Saturday and didn't go down on Sunday, because I saw some of the images of the journey that Leeds fans had down there on the Sunday, and it didn't look good. So I'm glad. I mean, the reason we go the day before is for exactly these reasons, because if anything gets in the way, if I'd have tried to do the drive from my mum's house in Llangollen to Swansea on the Sunday morning, I was contemplating this earlier, I don't think I might have made it, but I don't know how long it would have taken me, because exactly on the route I took the following day, there's been all sorts of trouble on in exactly those places that I was driving through. So like rail services suspended and all the rest of it. So I'm not sure I'd have made it through on the Sunday. So you do it for peace of mind, effectively. So you take the extra day to get there, to make sure you are there, to do the thing that you're meant to do.
Gets you out of the house as well, doesn't it? That's the important thing.
Well, it's been my life. So, disappearing for a weekend just to cover one game of football, although I did obviously slip another one into. But I mean, effectively, I was going to a Wrexham game that was en route, because that is a route. It isn't the route you normally go from Leeds, but it is a route from Leeds to Swansea, as I proved. You kind of give up your weekend effectively for quite a few of the away games.
I was going to say you preempted my next point, which was to be, it gives an illustration that the description of the journey that Leeds fans had to make on Sunday, because I saw the same videos of people driving, and I thought it was somebody who was taking the mick, saying, "Oh, look at the state of this. I've had to basically drive through a river." But no, it was actually legitimate video footage of coaches up to the wheel arches in water, because we've had a storm that's just dumped a load of water. I mean, it's sunny in Leeds today, we should say.
And it dumped it right on the route. I mean, there were around Swansea. There's been carnage, and you wouldn't quite describe it as the outskirts, but certainly between Swansea and Cardiff, there's been really, but Pontypool, Pontypridd, really bad flooding. So it was arguably the worst possible day to play Swansea City away from a weather perspective.
But from a football perspective, we keep getting treated to
more boring football, eh?
To incredible games at Swansea.
At Swansea, yeah, exactly.
You've been treated to a few.
Swansea's been kind. So for all, it's like you get, you've been rewarded for making the big effort to get there. And the first time was the lockdown game, so I was there on my own for that one, because I was probably illegally in Wales for that particular game. So that was a bizarre experience. Was a bizarre experience with an incredible outcome. And then last year, actually, the weather last year for the game was worse than this year. The day of the game, the weather last year was worse. I went for the usual run thing and got absolutely. I was just running into a howling gale and got absolutely soaked. So the weather was worse on the day, but the result was a comfortable victory. And then all the drama around this year. So there's a bit of both in there, isn't there? And Liam Cullen scored a goal, by the way, that looked exactly like Pablo Hernandez's goal.
Yeah.
It was almost from exactly the same position, hitting almost exactly the same way, and found its way into the back of the net via the same route off the foot.
The keeper clawing at the post to try and to try and save it. Which do you think was the better game from a commentary perspective? Was it last year's 4-0 or this year's 4-3?
That's a really good question.
Not a Leeds fan perspective, but a commentary perspective.
From a commentary perspective, obviously it was the 4-3, because from a Leeds perspective, it was obvious Leeds were going to win that game within, was it two in 10 minutes last season? So actually, it depends what you like, right? If you can guarantee me an outcome, I'll do yesterday. If you can't guarantee me that outcome, I'll do last season.
Yeah.
Because what's the ultimate outcome that we require here? Leeds United victory. That's it. So I'll go for last season if that's the only option.
Madness.
Within the stadium, how close are you to the Swansea commentator, out of interest? Because people have shared the clips of, for show we do called propaganda, where it's clips of other fans and stuff. You can hear the Swansea commentator, and his vibe is a bit different, should we say. He's kind of like, well, that looks offside. And then there's a long wait while a replay comes, and he goes, no, I think he's onside.
Is it his co-coms who says... well, actually, if you look at standing legs, if we're counting standing legs, then it's onside. As in, it's just onside.
It is just
I think
onside.
We do count standing legs for the offside thing, don't we? Swansea have a well-known commentary team who do. I don't know which commentary team it was, but they're the guys who do Swans TV. They've got I think it's a crazy co-com who does their stuff. They proper go for it. So there would have been that vibe to it, I'm sure. Because I've got to be honest, we don't always have monitors, but we did have working monitors yesterday, so that was good. It was very helpful because we could clarify pretty swiftly that actually what I thought in commentary appeared to be miles offside, like the Byram build up to the goal, turned out to be onside. So it was a big help yesterday because it did look, you go on instinct quite often with commentary, and particularly with offside, and the instinct there was, well, he can't be that far ahead of the defender behind him and that close to goal without being offside. It's not possible. But guess what?
And it's funny, isn't it, with the crowd all singing the songs about the officials, and you're sat there in the commentary box with the knowledge that they are wrong. Does it feel like being let into a good secret?
Well, yeah, that was noticeable. Was it just before half time? The Swansea fans were having a proper go at the ref then, and we knew. I mean, it's a comfort. Let's put it that way, because you can make yourself sound a bit daft if you start going down the sort of conspiracy route, which you could quite easily do in commentary. Maybe that's what my colleagues at Swansea did. I don't know. But if you start going down the conspiracy route and then you build up, that becomes the theme of the commentary to an extent. Oh, he's done us again here, and this is an outrage. And then if you then subsequently look back and, as you've described, go, oh, no, actually he was right.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he was right with that as well. Then there's a little bit of a credibility issue potentially there. So you have to tread a fine line.
I can see why they thought it.
Yeah.
And we have to say as well, credit to the linesman who did an incredible job, because it was almost like an optical illusion was Swansea's defending, because they managed to make us look so far offside because of their weird positioning and how disorganised the line was. Instinctively, you saw someone and you went,
he must be offside.
He must be offside. Why is he in so much space? He's got to be offside. But then you'd see the wider shot and there's someone just stood 5 yards behind the rest of the line.
And what's quite interesting from that perspective, it wouldn't have made any difference to the outcome, but the 18-yard line camera, quite often with the new way that they cover a lot of the championship games in the EFL, I think is usually auto-operated. So it's a fixed camera. It's not a human camera operative. And I think they've had a few issues with the pictures from those 18-yard line cameras, which tend to be, the 18-yard line camera is the one that usually clarifies the onside offside thing. And so they haven't been able to. Peru's goal at Millwall that was ruled out for offside, there wasn't an 18-yard line angle of that goal to be able to look back at and make a sort of. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter. Frankly, if you took all the cameras out the ground, the outcome still, the outcome of the game is still the same. So at this level, because there ain't any VAR element to it, doesn't really matter. But it does help in terms of, if people like to discuss whether that was right or wrong, which they do, it does help from that perspective.
Yeah, the Swansea comms, I'm fairly sure, and if it's the same one that we're talking about, the winner, they said there were question marks over, I think it was like Leeds United second or whatever, again, but trying to refer back to, again, a goal that was onside. And every single one of them was comfortably onside.
I mean, it's a very interesting way that Swansea play. And I've seen, because I saw Luke Williams as a Notts County's manager in National League. So I saw that the way that he plays at National League level. And there's a famous game they played against Wrexham, where Wrexham beat them 3-2. And they ruthlessly exploited that high line in the second half. And it was a simple thing. They just chipped the ball over the top and ran through the line. And it worked twice. And so I know they play a little deeper now, Swansea. So I did wonder how well that was going to translate to better level championship. But they do play deeper now. But still, there was you saw so many runs through the line where you thought we've got to be offside there. But actually, they play so high up that they leave a huge gap beyond that line, the back line. So if you put a ball through or over the top, you can run through the line and into this space that exists behind the defenders.
Did you speak to Manor Solomon after the game as
well?
We did,
yeah,
because he pointed out, didn't he, the space in behind them.
Yes.
They knew they had to get it wide and play early balls.
Yeah. Well, you could see that with the Strout pass through. That was the perfect example of it, where he was aware that the space was. So if you can get it between the defenders, and you've got, I mean, this team selection was surely done on this basis as well. You've got pace from on either side. They'll run to the other side of the line and pick the ball up on the other side, and that. It was a tactic and Dan James was sort of second half was they couldn't do anything about him because he had so much space in front of him to run into.
He was great. It was great, wasn't he?
I was slightly surprised they played in that way, because last year that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
We were watching it and going, why do they keep doing this? Like, they just kept pushing the line as high as they possibly could, and we just kept knocking it over the top and squaring it and scoring goals last year.
But that's how he plays. That's how Luke Williams plays. So. That's the model. They've had more time.
Worse, you do it.
Well, yes, they've had more time to work on it since you could tell that they weren't really comfortable with it when Leeds were there. It was an easy win, wasn't it? That one, very easy win. They weren't comfortable with it last season. He probably didn't have quite the personnel he wanted to work it. This year, he's had more time and he's got the people perhaps who make it work a bit better. But still, I mean, they don't concede many goals. That was why that was an unpredictable outcome yesterday, because theirs have been, as Daniel said after the game, 1-0s or 0-1s, or tend to be the scoreline they get. Their leading scorer was Cullen yesterday, and the lad who was on the bench, the number 9, with 2 each. So Cullen now with 3 is the leading goal scorer. So that tells you they don't score many goals, but they don't concede many either.
Yeah, I looked at their for and against in the table yesterday when we did the match ball, I was like, that can't be right. Like 14 each way. And that includes this game.
Yeah.
Where it's been a bit of a madness.
Were you surprised at how bad our defending was, given they seemed toothless, but they actually cut through us quite easily. And looking at the later stages in particular, there were a few crosses that caused us a lot of trouble.
If you want to laugh and you haven't done it already, go back to the LUTV coverage and just run the last, 5, 8, 10 minutes and just revel in Tony Dorigo's increasing level of hysteria as he gets more and more worked up about the fact that the cross keeps coming in from the left-hand side.
They warned us twice before it went in, didn't they?
Yeah. And then happened again after as well. Even after the fourth goal, there was another cross came into the middle. And as close as I've seen to Dorigo is usually kind of, until a goal gets scored and he starts yelping, is usually quite sort of... there's a fastidious kind of approach to be able to look at it with a professional eye, but he was getting quite hysterical by the end yesterday.
Yeah.
I think it seemed quite obvious to him what the issue was here, and yet he was getting more and more worked up that nobody was doing anything about it.
I suppose the other side to this is that we are, I know, quite measured in build-up, but we're also quite attacking as well. And against that back line, we are going to push players forward because it bore fruit for us so many times. So there is a risk baked into it as well.
You had a game yesterday which was two teams who were set out to play football, and look at the difference when that happens, right? So for all the talk of, Leeds are a bit boring, whatever, well, is that the alternative that you require? Because that might be what happens. You'll get an incredible 7-goal game requiring a virtual last minute winner, or you get a sort of fairly standard 2-0 home victory or whatever,
That's the other alternative, isn't it? That we're saying it was baffling to us that they kept dropping back. Kept playing in such an open way at the back rather than dropping back into a more defensive shape. But you kind of lose either way against Leeds, don't you?
And that's why teams do it.
Yeah.
Because there's the example yesterday. Because even when it came back to 3-3 with 2 minutes or whatever it was remaining, there was still a route through for Leeds because they've got players who can do that.
Yeah.
So most managers going on the basis of kind of the percentages will look at it and go, well, what's our best chance of doing something here? So go Millwall, set piece, get a goal, get in front, and then just defend like Billy-O.
Yeah.
It was quite telling actually when they get the equaliser. I noticed from crowd footage, in fact, there's someone runs and puts the ball back on the centre spot.
I think they thought they were going to win it.
Yeah, they are not in that point because a lot of teams would go, right, point against Leeds, good, shut up shop for the last 5 minutes.
Or make sure we don't concede us. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, perfectly happy with it. It was quite telling that, and even when they were in the lead earlier in the game, there was no time wasting from them either, which is actually quite nice in a lot of ways because it's so boring, isn't it? When you know a team takes an early lead against us and you're like, right, every goal kicks a minute, every throw-in's 30 seconds, the keeper's going to do the catching, laying down with it thing. They didn't do any of that when they were in the lead.
It infuriates you, doesn't it?
It really does. It's just because I feel like it's about 50% of Leeds games is watching people waiting to take goal kicks at the moment.
Yeah, and yesterday was a great game of football. So as a pal of mine who was watching, who isn't a Leeds fan, said, what a great game for the neutral. And that's, that would have been the wider perception yesterday would have been, that was a proper game of football, that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I've jotted down the words our place in the world there just when we were talking before. And I think maybe that's what's confused people in recent weeks. We're not used to being so much better than most of our opponents, I don't think. Certainly not in recent times anyway. It's, being Leeds is there's struggle baked into being Leeds United, I think, isn't there? And drama and chaos. And it's been weird watching us play what have been almost attack versus defence training exercises against teams that are time wasted and still trying to break up the game and slow it down, even though we are winning and they're losing. It's been a bit of a mind masher to see that at Ellen Road, but I think we've got used to it. But then seeing that yesterday, the chaos of it all was like, this is the Leeds United that feels like a comfortable pair of slippers.
Well, the concept of football as an entertainment product is all great until you lose 4-3 to a last-minute goal, isn't it? And then all of a sudden you have a yearning for something a little bit different. And managers lose their jobs every other week. So what perspective are they looking at this? Am I there to entertain you? No, I'm there to make sure I get another 3 months in position, frankly. So there's a lot of different kind of forces pushing against each other here. So we've had a little taster of the kind of what lies in a different place in terms of the entertainment levels. But even Tony was saying at the end of the game that was far too entertaining.
I think I found it emotionally weird yesterday because obviously we're familiar with like the comeback win is the best win, where like I'm thinking like 3-2 Villa, 4-3 Derby.
4-3 Derby. I mean, that still sticks in my
if you're going
mind.
back a lot of years, but I feel like there's a more obvious narrative arc in those games. This one was confusing because pretty much throughout it, I felt like we should be winning this game, but we're actually winning it for not very much. And then every goal they scored and every chance they had, I felt like it was kind of our fault for not just being better in these situations.
We talked about yesterday on the match ball. There's almost a degree of this is not fair, and you realise again, like going back to the chants that the Swansea fans are singing towards the officials. It's not fair is the root of that, isn't it? I mean, really, we regress into being children.
I was watching it thinking, but we are better than them.
Yeah, this isn't fair.
So why are we not just winning? Like this, just sort it out, please.
But that is the case. That's the ultimate outcome in most of the Leeds United games. And the stats back that up, to some extent in the last 2 seasons. But I'm not quite sure what everybody is more comfortable with. Are they? I
don't think
you
there is
need to decide, guys. You need to decide. What do you want?
I don't think there is a Goldilocks place for Leeds. And if there is, it'll be very temporary and it'll be very fleeting. We just need to ride the wave. I've come to accept that with Leeds now. We just need to ride the wave and see where we end up.
How was that wave feeling on about 91 minutes yesterday?
You're annoyed, but I was like you. I just felt like a childish injustice about it. Like, we are better than these. I can tell we are, so we should be winning. And that's like I said, that's the annoyance aspect of football, isn't it? You get put out because it's a childish pursuit. It's a game we played as kids. It's a game we watched as kids. So you can regress into that headspace.
There is nothing like, and I felt this for all those fans who were behind the goal there, who'd had that, probably really bad journeys down and started early and weren't going to get back home till very late at night. That there was quite a lot of noise from the away end yesterday early on. It was like people had been cooped up on coaches and stuff for a long time, and we're here now and we're going to make a lot of noise. And there was all the way through, great singing all the way through the first half. But then where's does your reward come? Your reward comes in the moment when you're at your lowest ebb. You've seen your side at the other end concede in the 92nd minute or whatever it was, and it's going to be a point, but it's a long. You're always thinking about the long. I'm always thinking about the long drive. I'm doing this when I'm commentating. What the hell are we going to talk about, me and Dorigo after that? He'll just go to sleep, and then the rest of it will be, I don't know. We'll try and avoid football, but and then it comes up the other end, and then at your end, right in front of you, and there's a minute left or whatever, and then the goal goes in, and there is the reward, and that's the bit where you get the thing back that you've put in.
And you mentioned that in your final question to Farke yesterday.
Well, I thought it was necessary to do because they obviously made a big, the players went to the fans, but the fans who were there yesterday had made a big effort to be there.
Yeah.
And that deserved the recognition that it got.
I think the experience of a game like that in a stadium is completely different from watching it on TV as well, because it's so much more feral in the stadium. And if you're in that away end, the minute before, you've had all the home fans that have been jeering over at you, giving it
the big one.
Giving it the big one.
Who are you?
And then a minute later, you get to just turn around and, as they're all sort of looking at their feet, trying to ignore what's just happened.
Filing out. Oh, it's just the best, isn't it?
That's really what makes the day.
It's exactly what it's all about. And I will say, even though I wasn't in the stadium yesterday, I would have loved to have been. But again, to touch on a thing we've mentioned before, it's so pathetic how much happier I am today because I got that yesterday.
It's the little things, isn't it?
Yeah.
That give everybody that little sort of back. I mean, I've had a weekend where I've seen Wrexham win on Saturday, play well and win on Saturday. Then I saw Leeds United win with a last-minute winner on Sunday, and my Vets team won as well in our Vets league. So I'm cloud nine. I'm real tired. It's only 12 hours since I got into bed, but I'm on cloud nine.
But
today.
you know you're alive, Bryn.
I know I'm alive. I can feel my heart beating.
How are you experiencing the dual promotion push? Because obviously, are you expecting Wrexham? Do you feel pressure from Wrexham?
No, I feel no pressure. It's a complete difference watching Wrexham.
Have you thought about a playoff final?
No.
Shit,
no.
I've just put that in your mind then.
No, I don't need to contemplate that stuff with Wrexham because. We're not meant to be there. We are there, but we're not meant to be there. And I've seen 15 years of rubbish, and we've been playing at Guiseley and places like that, and getting beaten at Guiseley and places like that. And so every I was sat with a family. It was lovely on Saturday. I sat with the person who offered me the ticket under the roof. Was there with his family. So him and his brother and his mum and his dad, who are in their 80s, they're all season ticket holders. His daughter was meant to be there, but the weather meant she couldn't get from Loughborough to get up for the game. So I got her ticket. Thank you. But so I sat with them as a group, and they've been going to Wrexham as season ticket holders forever. So the dads, I was talking with his dad, first game 1952, and so it was brilliant to
Seen it all.
Seen everything, and sitting with proper. So when Wrexham play these days, they get a lot of "Where were you when you were shit?" Right, and I laugh and chuckle about that because if I'm at a ground hearing it, I'm thinking, "Well, I was here," so I'm okay with
Again,
that.
talking about smug feelings, that's a great one when you go, "Well, I've been here throughout."
That's right, exactly. Yes.
You can sing that all you like, but you're wrong.
I'll show you my program collection and that sort of stuff. And so this family are they are the epitome of that. They've all been going forever. So I was sat in their midst with that, and so we chatted, and it was really good. It was a really good place to watch a game like that from, because the guy who got me the ticket was saying, he said, I don't care what anybody says about us at the moment, because look at this. This is just, we're playing great football. Exeter are not a bad side. They were going well, but we beat them comfortably. And he said, I'm just loving every game at the moment. So that is the sensation at Wrexham, right? Fast forward 24 hours to Leeds, and it's like, got to do this because fourth at start of play, and so there is a chance to go top, but fourth doesn't look good, and they've all picked up points this weekend, and oh my God, they've gone in front. Oh Jesus, 6-hour drive back, and then there'll be all the back. Okay, they've equalised, and that's how the Leeds bit plays out. So I get to kind of, I'm super chill with one, and the other one is completely different.
Did you feel more stress getting out of, for example, the National League when it was in fact Luke Williams' Notts County team?
Yeah, that's when all the anxiety went away.
When you got out of that.
That Notts County game is the last anxious Wrexham game that I've watched. And up until that point, it was like watching Leeds United. Every single game was, well, we've got to bleed and win this one because, and it was like that for every game in the National League.
It's your place in the world, isn't it? Again, it's like, why are we here? We shouldn't be here. I know that's entitled, but we should be there.
Well, and that's where there was a very similar thing going on between these two clubs, the two clubs that I happen to have ended up watching, Wrexham and Leeds, because the feeling at both was the same. We shouldn't be here. We're bigger than this. We get bigger gates and da-da-da-da. But for years, that was actually the reality. So every game you were going to was on the basis that, well, anything less than a sort of comprehensive win today is actually a bit of a disaster. And it gets quite tiring, I find that. But then we beat Notts County. That wasn't the last game of the season, but we beat Notts County, and that was the game that got us into the position where you're going to get promoted. And from that point, it just kind of, because all we wanted to do was get out of there to something that we as Wrexham fans felt was more like our natural
Bielsa era.
Yes, exactly.
Riding the wave.
Well, it was almost the times the same. I think 15 or 16 years in the National League, so it was the same as being out of the Premier League. So many similarities, and then it happened, and then after that, everything from that point on becomes a bonus. So I'm still looking. We're second in the table as things stand, but I'm still looking and going, well, we're very close to 40 points now, and so I feel relatively confident we'll be playing in this league again next season. Whilst we have probably newer fans who are contemplating, what would it be like to go to Ellen Road to play Leeds United in the Championship?
And that's the one you don't want. We've said this far, haven't we?
Oh, God.
We're crossing the streams on Ghostbusters. Don't do it. A real opportunity exists for Leeds now, doesn't it? Because top of the table, and just looking down the fixtures, 4 out of the next 6 are at Ellen Road.
Yeah, that's it.
Including Oxford, Middlesbrough. That'll be a tough test there on a good wave. Derby, as well, we should just mention actually after the Derby, but that's when we're doing our Christmas drinks. Griffin, Centre of Leeds, tea time will be there. If you want to join us, you're welcome.
Okay.
I'll come down.
Very kind.
And prior to that is Luton, and another Welshman actually in the form of Rob Edwards.
I know Rob. He's one of my guys, one of my course guys.
So no rest for the wicked. You've got to go back to bed this afternoon and get ready for get ready for Wednesday.
That run does offer opportunities, like you've suggested. So in the middle of the games, then Middlesbrough looks a real toughie because that lad Doak is already scaring the hell out of me. Did you see him for Scotland in the couple of games?
The guy was on loan from Liverpool.
Yeah, So and they got 14 in the last 3 or something mad like that. So they're scoring a lot of goals. So that, and they've already come and pumped Leeds once at Ellen Road this season. So that's in that little run of fixtures, that would be the one you'd go,
the fear, the fear,
the madness,
Yeah.
whatever. So that one in there, but around that, either side of that, are those sorts of games that if Leeds have got, a real idea, and Farker talked about this yesterday, if you want to win silver, these are the type of games you've got to win. Then those that around it, Leeds should be going into confident, to say the least. So to get into the Christmas programme with Leeds in the same position, Leeds should be aspiring to stay where they are now. I think we've seen enough to underline that.
Well, 2 points per game. We're on 32 points at the minute. And I know, obviously, a lot of being a football fan, as well as regressing into childhood states, is bargaining and saying, well, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. Actually, we are a Brendan Aronson miss in that opening day game against Portsmouth away from a win there. We're a Melier catch away from another win there. You could argue, I think fairly, that we should be on 36 points. I looked this morning at this week last season. We were on, I think it was 31 points, but we were 8 points adrift of Leicester and Ipswich, who were at the top. But had we won those 2 games that we probably should have done, barring those 2 moments...
Hold on a second. I need to make notes here.
What I'm saying is, we could conceivably be on 36, which is not a million miles away from what the 2 who were running away with it last year were on. So
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Do you know what I mean? What I'm saying is, we're dead good. We should be miles clear, like last season. But it gives me hope that these are the margins on which games turn, and if we can start to make a few of those count, then we could conceivably
and Burnley only beat us because Solomon slipped.
Exactly. So we're a slip away from a draw there. That's another point. That's 37.
Anything that's benefited us, let's ignore
the rest of it.
Well, last season was different. We've already discussed this. Last season was different because you had 2 teams who just racked up a load of points, Leicester in particular, really early on. It just doesn't happen like that in the Championship. So that the game was always playing catch up. I think from a psychological perspective, if I don't really know anything about psychology, but if Leeds are sitting on top, that's I genuinely think that's Leeds' rightful position from what we're seeing this season. So the challenge for the players is to stay there, is to stay in the place they should be.
Yeah, just keep racking up the points. It is a long season. We're only barely a third of the way through it at this stage.
Oh man, I'm literally exhausted because we've only got 2 long trips left, right? So it's Portsmouth and Plymouth are the two hefty journeys.
And Plymouth
left.
is the final day. We'll be promoted by that, so you'll be enjoying that.
So we may call that one in from a beach somewhere or something. I think Dorigo's already pulling a hamstring looking ahead to that one.
So when's the Portsmouth one? Let's have a look. That's 8th of March. So the weather might be turning again by then, Bryn. You might be all right.
Well, it gives me a little bit of time to kind of, recover. But so the run now in terms of the logistics and all that sort of stuff is there's a clear run now, and they've played quite a lot of the harder games now, I think. That's why Middlesbrough for me jumps out of that forthcoming fixture list, because now a lot of the sides who will be up there have already been played once, and some of them who are down there, there's plenty of games against those sort of sides coming up.
What do you fancy then from Wednesday's game against Luton? I don't know what to make of Luton, obviously, because they were Premier League last season. They lost some of their key players, and for whatever reason, they just cannot get going this season.
Well, the first thing to say about Wednesday is I hadn't noted the date until somebody mentioned it to me after the game yesterday. So the 28th of November is obviously sort of Gary Speed type significance. We're in that period again, as we always are every year. So there'll be an emotional element to it for absolutely certain. I mean, even Rob Edwards would have been in the same squad as Gary Wales squads. So there is a the more I think about it, there's a bit more going on around Wednesday in a sense. So there's that bit, there's that element to it, and then there's another element to it which says it's another home game against a side who have struggled so far this season, perhaps surprisingly. So there ought to be a positive outcome.
Yeah, I think we're right to go into every game. I wouldn't say expecting it, but expecting a performance that could lead to a win. I'm trying to choose my language carefully. Not to sound entitled.
You're allowed to be a bit more you can be a bit more to the point than that if you want. It's a game Leeds should win.
Right.
And it is a game that Leeds should win. So I don't think there's any point going into it with any other kind of, because anything less than that is not. isn't to say that won't happen, but anything less than that is not the result that should be, because Leeds have a good squad, and they proved that some of the subs that came on from the bench, it was crazy, really, the standard of the subs who were coming on at Swansea. Internationals coming in off the bench, full internationals coming off the bench, and the other one who comes on who scores a winning goal. So that capability is something that's not available to many teams in the Championship.
You said Rob Edwards is one of your guys. That's because you do media
With the FAW, yes.
stuff. Did you say last time you were on, Chris Wilder was one of yours?
So,
and then I'm sure it was like 2 weeks after, he was then pictured just stood on a chair in a pub singing sausage roll.
Yeah, that wasn't actually. He's doing a PhD at the moment, so that's kind of that's a higher level of.
Is he out of your care?
Yeah, he's working at a higher level now, Chris. It's a special project that he's on. Yeah, so and Rob is obviously, as a personality, is a complete contrast. He's a very quiet, really nice guy. Rob
Handsome
Edwards.
as well.
He's annoyingly handsome.
Yeah, ridiculous.
A beautiful man.
And he's one of those guys who, when he came into the first team coaching, came back and we talked about what he was going to do and how he was going to approach stuff, and we kind of did a little sort of ahead of major media appearances that he was about to make, like when he's been unveiled as manager and that sort of thing. We would strategize a little bit as to what was going to what was likely to come up and how he was going to deal with it.
Do we know how his side plays? I'm not fully au fait with that. I'm just looking at the statistics of it.
Not very well would be the answer, but that's
they
only
concede
I
a
watched
lot.
them. Yeah, I watched them a couple of weeks ago, and they have some good players in the team still, but they did look really quite loose defensively.
Yeah, they don't score a lot. They concede a lot.
Well,
I'm talking myself into why we should win again, and I don't like it.
You and all this coaching talk. I mean, I don't know. It's difficult sometimes when you come down from the Premier League, isn't it? They were a surprise package to get there in the first place, and then it went predictably, frankly, in terms of what they're like Southampton this year. Although Southampton have been there more recently, but you have this idea of what it's going to be. We talked about this the last time I was in. You have this idea about what it's going to be, and then the reality bites. Yeah. And then the aftermath of that for a club like Luton is probably a bit more difficult, because you'll have had some players who are good, who've been exposed to other clubs who think, oh, he was quite good, we'll have him. And then you've got to do something to build a new sort of side because you're back in the Championship again.
And as we know, it's a different proposition, a vastly different proposition to the Premier League.
Yes.
It takes a little bit of time to adjust sometimes.
Yeah, and that would appear to be case with them. I mean, you would have backed any team that comes down from the Premier League, generally speaking, should be amongst the favourites to go straight back into it. But this year, the Sheffield United and Burnley are doing okay, but Luton have been the one that have definitely fallen off the pace. So something's happened there. I mean, Rob will probably be under pressure, I would imagine. That's the Steve Cooper went yesterday, didn't he? While we were watching the game at Leicester. Steve's another guy who was on the course, obviously, in the past. So. What were Leicester kind of anticipating here? What are they going to get from the next guy that they weren't getting from the last guy? Well, time will tell, but I'm not sure they'll be in a very vastly different position.
Mind you, did you see the footage that was leaked over the weekend of the players? I think they were in Denmark near an Enzo I Miss You sign and fireworks in a bar somewhere. I think they're the same night as the defeat. Yeah, so I'm not sure it's an entirely happy camp. But.
Yeah, but you don't know, do you? Because that's supposition based on that sort of thing. That isn't. It shouldn't be. Surely shouldn't be a decision based on that. It should be based on other stuff. A combination of factors, perhaps, but not just that. I don't know.
It's interesting. The bottom half of the Championship is very, very tight. There's only 5 points between Hull in 22nd and Derby, who are on 20 in 11th. It's very compact.
It's pretty tight all the way through, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the difference to last year, where you had the two at the top who were flying, whereas that's not the case. So you've got a narrow points gap between the top 8. Was it 6 or so?
Well, I was going to say, I'm talking about being a Premier League arrogant pig dog. I'd not even looked below the edge of the playoffs, and Millwall, who are on a good run of form, 8th on 24 points, so we're now 8 points clear of that. Watford are just outside the playoffs on 26, but West Brom are in them on 26. So ostensibly it's a 6 point gap now to the playoffs, to being out of the playoffs rather.
And West Brom, who I was talking about with my pal Adrian Childs at the weekend, because I bumped into him in Swansea, and he has a season ticket there, so he's there. he sees the lot there. I mean, they suffer as well, the West Brom fans.
We were looking at their home record, weren't we, the other day? They basically don't score any goals.
Before Saturday, they'd scored 2 and conceded 1 from all their home games. So that tells me that most of them end 0-0.
George Graham era.
And so they've had all sorts of stuff going on there in recent times, ownership issues and all the rest of it. So he does disgruntled football fan pretty well.
Well, I wish him well because they're up at Sunderland, aren't they? This midweek.
This midweek, yeah.
Bit threadbare, and West Brom's away record. I think we looked, didn't we? Yesterday was the best in the division. So
another one of my guys, Reece Carr, is in charge currently at Coventry City, and Reece was the surprise acting, caretaker manager appointment when Mark Robbins got sacked. Reece was part of the coaching staff, so he's been elevated. So his first game, and we've been talking through that process. His first game was Sunderland away. So I sent him a little message before saying, make sure you get a good result today. And they were 2 down at half time. And then they came back to draw the game 2-2.
Yep.
So that was a good point at Sunderland. Then the next game on Saturday was Sheffield United, which I saw a little bit of before I set off by my own game. And they were in front and then behind in that one, and then came back in the second half and drew 2-2. So again, another point. And then who's their next game? Burnley. So keep going, Reece. And it looks like he's going to be in charge for that one as well. So Reece Carr has done Leeds a few favours there, potentially.
Leave him in charge for that, then get Lampard in.
Yeah.
Which is, the way football works is probably the scenario that will ultimately play out.
Well, unless I'm making a horrific assumption here, I presume Reece is Welsh.
He is, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
circles us back to where we started, really, isn't it? And your T-shirt.
That's right, and the T-shirt. So it's all cyclical. I'm quite predictable, me.
So yeah, keep going, the Welsh boys, doing us some good stuff at the minute. And Bryn, thanks for coming in. We'll see you soon, yeah?
Very welcome.
The Square Ball Podcast.